You've been researching France for months, so you have your visa tabs open, you have your spreadsheet about your budget going, you're watching relocation videos like mine on like autoplay. But whether you're happy once you arrive in France comes down to five questions that I think never really shows up when you start your research for your move abroad plan, right? And so let's talk about them. And it's also something that happened to me when I first moved abroad. And if you don't know, I'm Diedre. I am a Jamaican currently living in France. I've been in France for a total of like almost 10 years now. And I've moved abroad 5 times, lived on 4 continents, and I moved to France twice. And the first time, I didn't really answer these five questions. I didn't really pay attention to them. And I think it made it a lot more difficult for me to really settle into the move abroad process. Um, in other places, I work as well in HR, and so I've spent a lot of time with foreign employees with their paperwork, renewals, visas, that sort of thing. And outside of work, I coach women through their move to France. Right, that's who I am. The women who like really settle and get to integrate and immerse well in France are not the people who like research everything all the time, which you might find surprising. These aren't necessarily women who find the most success with immersing and integrating in France. It's those who really answer these five questions that end up valuing and creating more and having like more satisfaction in their move abroad to France when they answer those five questions. So don't get stuck on researching. But let's look at what the five questions are so that you can answer them for yourself. And first, there are like 2 points of two categories of questions, I would say. And the first one is I call them the logistics research questions. So it looks at your cost, your rent, whether you need to speak France, visas, blah, 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 blah. And so these are the things that you're probably researching and Googling right now, right? I've got a bunch of videos covering a lot of those, so you can check them out. There's a whole playlist. So relax, don't worry. You will have points about what to do about the first set of questions. Now the second type of questions, and these are five big main ones for me. There is, I think, no real Google answers for these. And it's something that you have to answer for yourself and you have to think about and really process, right? And these five questions are the ones that decide whether you'll be okay once you get to the other side and you finally arrive and move to France. So the first question is you need to ask yourself, what am I willing to be bad at again? So, what are you willing to be bad at again? We underestimate it, but when you move abroad, you go from competent to a beginner like overnight. And what I mean is, you're going to be bad in public, and you're going to be bad in public at the things that you used to do without thinking about them. So, going to the supermarket, going to the bank, doing your groceries, transportation, knowing where to go, giving directions, asking for directions, like lots of daily life things. I'm not even tackling like work or complex matters. When you go abroad, especially if you go abroad in a country where you don't speak the language, but even when you do speak the language, because culture is different and the way things are organized in each country is different. And so when you arrive in that new place, you're just no longer a competent person because a lot of the habits that you had or you have are from your home country, right? And so the ways of doing things that you're used to is from a different culture. And of course, you can apply it and you can apply one way. If you've taken the metro or the subway in one place, you will probably know how to take the metro or subway in another country. Yes, like those general concepts are true, but there is a difference between understand how to cross lines. In the subway, is it northbound, southbound? Is it platform one, platform two? Like how to access things. I'm just using transportation as an example for just to give you a visual of what I'm saying. But that first question is, what are you willing to be bad at again? And it's just to remind you that you will be bad in public. And what I'm saying is don't have a huge fear of things. Just understand that if you feel a bit stressed or a bit anxious, or you're a bit concerned about like these things, understand that it's normal and everybody goes through this. It is automatic. It is totally normal and it's inevitable that there is that period of adjustment and you're going to feel like you're a beginner just overnight. So the language admin system, the social codes, the simple errands that you have to run will turn into like three trips because you don't really know the rules of that country. And like I said, if you've never confronted that, it can be a little bit jarring when you arrive and you're like, I don't know how to use the supermarket. What are these machines? Oh, I need to weigh the fruits by myself. The cashier doesn't do it. Or, oh, the cashier does it and I don't weigh the fruits by myself. Just little simple things. Find those things interesting instead of humiliating or embarrassing. If you're able to find the joy in discovering, and that for me was one of the things, like discovering these new ways of doing simple everyday things, really helped with integrating, because for me it was just like learning and it was a new adventure, even just walking down the road, right? And so find the joy and the interest and the intrigue in these things, and that will help you. So my question for you is, how do you handle being bad at simple things in public? Think about it. If you've realized that perhaps you need to like work through some of these things a little bit more, or you realize you've been spending a lot of time on the first set of questions, so the researching part, the logistics, and not working through the how to's of, being bad at things or being a beginner again, then if you spent lots of time in the deep, like how to of moving, I have a workshop. It's called Move to France, the Essentials, and it really covers that gap, especially in the live Q&A section, where you're able to discuss with me as somebody who is on the ground, exactly what life is like and how you can work through and envision yourself and visualize and get a sense of what life is like. My workshop is called Move to France, the Essentials. It's a live monthly workshop, and it's where we go through these readiness questions and get the real France structure put around them. So your visa pathways, real costs, where you might actually belong in the city, and then all of these questions around how to navigate being bad at things again, and the other 4 questions that we're going to talk about later on. So the link is in the description to my workshop. You can come back to it later, but let's get back into the other 4 questions that you should think about. So, question 2, what am I solving for? And it's, what are you solving for? What does this move solve? What is the objective of that move? I talk about it so often where I say, are you escaping something, or are you running away from something, or are you building or rebuilding self trust, a new life, etc.? But even outside of that, just what is this move supposed to solve or fix? And like, what is the objective? Get really, really clear on that. The move may not solve or fix that thing, right? It may give you new insights on it, or it might solve something else completely. But you do need to understand and know what you're going through, and why you're moving abroad and moving to France. So not just do I want to move, because yeah, of course everybody wants to move, right? But more about like, what is it? What is the move abroad meant to fix? Is moving to France supposed to fix your job, the pace of your day, how you structure your life, work life balance, that feeling that you've outgrown your life and so you want something new? Like, what is the move abroad supposed to fix? What's the objective? Like, really, really answer that question. It really, really helps. I would also say that, so I had a client, right? Um, she is based in India, and she researched a lot of things, just like you might be doing right now. And she went down to, she knew the exact neighborhood that she wanted to go to, everything. And in our session, I stopped to ask her, so I asked her this question: what is the move supposed to fix. And she knew which visa, she knew the apartment. We worked through all of that. And she got really, really stuck. And she almost carried, well, in fact, she carried that same problem onto the plane with her because she hadn't really questioned it. She said, oh, she will take some time to think about it. We had worked through a lot of other things, and that was something else that she had to do. And she hadn't really thought about the question. So when she arrived in France, we had another catch up. And she was like, you know what, Diedre, you were so right, because the same problems that I had back home, I carried them in France. And it just reminds me of that phrase and that book, wherever you go, there you are. And if you don't pay attention to what those things, where you who you are, and you know what you're trying to fix and sort out, then it's just going to arrive with you, and you're just like, same problem but in French. Anyways, I just wanted to share that it just reminded me of that client. She eventually did work it out, and because we had worked together on the right visa for her, the city and neighborhood where she wanted to be, and the that would match and fit her lifestyle in France, and you know we did work out the move, then it made it a little bit simpler to solve those things because she also answered other important questions. But she also realized that the real objective of her move, she hadn't really confronted it, and she hadn't really processed through it, and she ended up carrying over some of that baggage to France. Third question: who am I when nobody knows my history? Ask yourself that. So, who are you when no one knows your history? They don't have the backstory of how you grew up. They don't have the backstory of your culture. They don't have the backstory of your work achievements or other life achievements. They don't have any story. You're meeting them for the first time. Who are you when nobody knows your story? And how do you navigate the world when nobody knows your story? Where you live now, people know your story, your family, your friends, your coworkers, colleagues, etc. They know your reputation, you know your network. You've built up like a huge picture, a whole life picture of who you are, right? But when you move abroad, all of that kind of resets to zero unless you're moving to a place where you already have some network, you already have some friends or family or something. But essentially, when you move abroad, all of your history kind of like resets to zero, and you walk into a place, not to be dramatic, but you walk in kind of like a total stranger. And everything is strange. I don't want to say strange has like a negative connotation here. I'm not trying to say that it's negative, but everything is new, and you're new, and the place is new. The whole thing is new. And so you have no history. The place has no history of you. You have no history of the place. The people and the culture and everybody around has no history of you, and nor you them, right? For some of you, you might feel like, oh, this is a clean slate. Whew, I can become who I am. And I do this a lot when I solo travel. I've written this in my book, The Map Back to You, which is my book on solo travel about rediscovering yourself through solo travel. Where whenever I go abroad, I'm like this new person. I'm a new persona, not because I need to like pretend to be who I am, but sometimes just for the fun of it, I try something. Like if there is something or someone or some kind of like characteristic or personality trait that I want to practice or become or lean into more, sometimes I do that when I am abroad because it's a clean slate, right? There is no obligations, there are no expectations. Nobody knows me. They're never gonna see me again, more likely. Like, I don't know these people don't know me. And so for me, it's like a clean, exciting slate, and it's a blank page, and it's this opportunity to practice personality traits and characteristics that I want to embody more in my life. And it reduces a lot of the pressure. So for some you might feel that this might be your approach to moving abroad. For others, they might feel it a bit destabilizing, right? Because when you arrive to the place, you're just like, everybody's a stranger and I'm a stranger. And we don't really clock how much of who I am we really rely on, or who I am to other people, that identity and that understanding of how we're perceived by others. Sometimes we don't realize how much of that we rely on to navigate the world. And I think neither reaction is wrong, right? It's just, you just need to understand which end of the spectrum that you lean into. Are you someone that you find nobody knows me more intriguing, a clean space, a new opportunity? Or are you on the end of nobody knows who I am? Oh God, this is a bit more anxiety inducing, or it's a bit more I feel like I'm out of my comfort zone and it's a bit more destabilizing. You just need to understand who you are here. Or question 4. It's, can I picture the ordinary day, not the postcard? That's the question. So ask yourself, can you picture the ordinary day in this new place where you're at? So in France, not the postcard version of France. Everybody planning a move abroad can picture the highlight reel, the Instagram photos, all of the cutesy, nice place, um, the romantic version of France, right? Of course, the cafes, sitting outside, the going to the marché, to the market, the different architecture and the buildings, etc. But can you picture as well when you move abroad? Can you see yourself on a normal Tuesday when the skies are gray, when you're in a heat wave like we just had recently, when you don't really have anybody to call for lunch yet because you haven't built up your network? Can you picture the ordinary day, and are you still excited about it? And you will succeed with your move abroad and your move to France when you fall in love with the ordinary day of your life in that new country, the ordinary day of going to the supermarket in France, the ordinary day of walking through grand architecture buildings in Paris, but they're all beige. Yes, they're all beige. It's kind of like, what is it, limestone? But the Haussmannian architecture is a little bit, for me, monotone. It's a bit beige. Like, but you fall in love with that. You fall in love with walking down the boulevard in the different passages. You fall in love with just picking up some groceries, um, checking out the new fruits in season, or, just being in your apartment, having some tea, trying out the local tea. Like, fall in love with the ordinary day. If you can sit with an ordinary, unremarkable day in France and feel contentment, or even like intrigue or some kind of peace, well, that will tell you more about how you might settle in French life than like a pros and cons list. So just picture your ordinary day, and how do you feel about it? Last question. Which regret can I live with? Yes. I think Elizabeth Gilbert said it in her book, Big Magic. What shit sandwich can you eat over and over again? So, which regret can you live with? What trade off, what loss can you live with? Because there will be a trade off, and there will be some kind of like, I don't know, regret might be a bit strong, but there will be some kind of trade off. Everybody focuses on the negative side of, I go and it doesn't work out, it fails, I regret it. And yes, that is a possibility, and it's a valid one to think about, right? But what if you're 2 years in your move to France and you feel like you're still in the exact same spot, just in a different country? You're asking these same questions, with 2 years more gone. How would you feel? Or what trade-off, or what trade-off can you live with while you're in France? Because you're going to gain something, you have to give up something. I think it's the universal order of life. Not all of your choices are going to go the way that you plan, and not all of the choices that you make about friends and your move abroad is going to go to plan, and you might have some regrets. And so just think about, if even if you have some regrets, and even if it's a big one of you moved to France, you moved abroad and it didn't work out, are you okay with that? Because sometimes you're just like, you know what? Maybe it's not a regret. Maybe it's more of a lesson. Or, yes, there's disappointment here, but I learned so much and I don't regret moving. Like, figure out what regret you can live with and understand it and know that things are not going to go the way that you want. And that can help you with settling with the newness and uncertainty of moving to a new country and moving abroad. So, to recap the 5 questions, it's what are you willing to be bad at? So, that's the first one. What are you willing to be bad at? What is the move meant to fix? Who are you with no history? Are you in love with an ordinary Tuesday in France, an ordinary day in France? Which regret can you live with? Those are the 5, okay? None of these is going to come with some tidy answer. You might not arrive at figuring out all of these, but just keep it in mind. And that's a whole point of why we're talking about it. And your answers are going to be different from mine. My answers are going to be different from yours. And it's going to be different from somebody else who you know who is moving abroad, for example. It's going to be based on your current situation, your tolerance for risk, how comfortable you are with uncertainty, how excited you are about learning things and life all anew. So just understand that it will be specific to you and it shifts and evolves with time. You also don't have to work through these alone. You don't have to figure out what's going to happen to France by yourself. That's what my workshop, Move to France The Essentials, is for. It's a live monthly workshop. So we're having one coming up this month where we go through your readiness and the real logistics of France in the same room. And you have that moment to ask me. I have 10 years of experience of being a foreigner in France, where you can ask all of your questions. The link is in the description. If you feel like you want a one-on-one instead, then we also have that. But start with the workshop. The workshop is a good base. Like I said, it's the essentials. It covers what you really need to know. Start with the workshop. I'm Diedre. I help women move to France, move abroad to design the life that they love because they deserve it, because you deserve it. So sit with these 5 questions, write down your answers, and see what you come up with. And when you're ready, come join my workshop, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.